So thank you all for joining us here at the Curtis R. Preem Experimental Media and Performing Arts Center at RPI. I particularly want to thank our partners for the 2023 Troy Mayoral Candidate Forum, the League of Women Voters of Rensselaer County. Because the histories of Troy and RPI are inextricably linked, it's really a pleasure to welcome so many members of the community to campus for an event that will help us decide the direction of the city we all call home for the years to come. I'm reminded of the link between RPI and Troy every day because my office is in the Troy building, which was a gift from the city in celebration of RPI's 100th anniversary. Now, in 3 months, we'll be entering our 200th birthday, and I can't wait to see the gift from the city of Troy. I'm grateful to see so many of our citizens of Troy here in Impact Concert Hall, and I personally am also very excited for the future of this city and our relationship, and I hope you'll come visit us as often as you're able. I've been here for a little over a year, and in that time I've enjoyed a strong working relationship with current Mayor Madden, and I'm looking forward to partnering with the next administration in 2024 and beyond. I think we're all going to do great things together. But let me now introduce some of our elected officials who have joined us this evening. Assemblyman John McDonald. And Town of Colony Supervisor Peter Crummy. Our timekeeper this evening is Steve Mueller. Steve. And our moderator is News 10 ABC evening anchor Lydia Kulbidi. And the 2023 candidates for mayor of the great city of Troy, New York, City Council President Carmella Mantello, and Rensselaer County Legislator Nichols. Again, thank you and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you to RPI President Martin Schmidt for your warm welcome here to beautiful Impact Hall and for hosting tonight's Troy Mayoral Forum with the League of Women Voters of Rensselaer County. Welcome to our candidates, Nichols and Carmella Mantello, who by coming here tonight and in other gatherings underscore the importance of open and civilized discussion in a democracy for voters to be able to make informed decisions. Before we begin tonight, I want to remind everyone to please turn off all electronic equipment so that there are no interruptions. The League is a nonpartisan political organization dedicated to informed and responsible participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or opposes in any political party or candidate. This has been their policy for 100 years. Membership is open to anyone who is 16 years and older, and they ask that you please consider joining the League. I realize that many of the people in the audience tonight may support one candidate over another, and hopefully we got all of the hoops and hollering out of the way when we introduced the candidates in the beginning, because we are going to insist that the audience and the candidates treat each other with respect. Personal attacks will not be allowed. The timekeeper from the League of Women Voters, as we heard, Steve Mueller, I'll ask you to raise your hand one more time, Steve, so our candidates can see where you are, and they will know how much time that they have. The cards that Steve holds are color coordinated. So green means 1 minute left, yellow means 30 seconds, and a red card means time is up. Our rules and format of the candidate forum tonight are: candidates' opening statements will be 2 minutes each. Opening statement order was determined not by a coin flip, but by a hockey puck flip backstage just a few moments ago. And candidates' closing statements will be 1 minute each. As the moderator, I will be asking all of the questions, but they've been chosen by the League and RPI from registered participants, you in the audience, and 3 local high schools. I will alternate between candidates for purposes of answering questions first. Candidates' answers to questions will be no more than 2 minutes. But each candidate will be given 2 red cards to be used during this forum. Each card will allow an additional 1 minute to add to a response or to respond to something that the other candidate has said. Red cards, though, may not be used during opening or closing statements. Candidate providing opening remarks second will provide closing remarks first. As a moderator for the League of Women Voters, I represent the nonpartisan standards and demonstrate fairness, neutrality, and dignity. I live outside of this election district and outside of Rensselaer County and promise to be impartial. To preserve decorum, a reminder for all in the audience to remain silent during this forum and refrain from shouting, cheering, clapping, or jeering. Once again, a reminder to please silence your cell phones as we begin our forum with opening statements, and Nina Nichols will be beginning.
Good evening, and thank you to Dr. Schmidt, Kirk Ives, the staff at MPAC, and the RPI community for hosting this candidate forum, along with the League of Women Voters for co-sponsoring this debate, and to Lydia Kolbita for moderating this evening. I'm grateful to all of you who made time to attend this event in this very busy season and on this beautiful day. And especially want to thank the students and teachers from Troy High School, Lansingburg High School, and Emma Willard for developing some of our questions, and to all of you who submitted questions, recognizing that our democracy is strengthened by your participation in it. Together, we can make this a safer, cleaner, greener city, an even better Troy for everyone who lives here, learns here, works here, and comes to enjoy Troy. I am Nina Nichols. I am a wife to an RPI graduate. Julia and I live just up the road on Burdette, just half a block over from where she was first living when she came to RPI. I am the mother of 3 children who grew up in Troy, attended Troy schools, and are now in college. I have spent my life committed to community and public service and advocacy for what is good and right and just. The last 10+ years, I've been at Unity House in development and advocacy, helping connect individuals, private foundations, and corporate donors to opportunities for making life better for people who are struggling. This involves quite a bit of building partnerships and pursuing grant opportunities. A part of my work also includes advocating for the human services workforce, affordable childcare, and affordable supportive housing. I've served on many local boards, most recently as the president of the Oakwood Community Center Board. I was on the Troy City Council in 2012 and successfully wrote or advanced legislation to improve the quality of life for our residents, support small businesses, and move us to being a greener and more sustainable Troy. I am currently a Rensselaer County Legislator serving on the Veterans and Youth Committee, Health, Planning, and Tourism Committee. I am running for mayor because I love Troy, and I think it can be better. I am a thoughtful, collaborative leader who believes in building a shared vision for our great city and implementing the plans to bring that vision to life. Thank you for this opportunity to hear some of the questions that are important to you, and I look forward to visiting with you after this event.
Thank you, Nina Nichols. And now, Carmella Mantello, opening statements.
Thank you to the audience. President Marty, thank you so much. RPI and League of Women Voters, thank you to Lydia and my opponent. I look forward to this evening's conversation and the opportunity to discuss our very different visions for the future of Troy. Most of you know me. You know I'm not a fancy talker. I tell it straight, and I speak frankly. So in the plainest possible language, these are a few things you should know about me and what I stand for. I love this city and its people with a passion. Troy is in my blood. I'm born and raised in North Central, grew up in the Berg, daughter of a Troy policeman. I gave birth to one of our sons at Burdett, and my husband Paul and I have raised our family here. Many of you probably also know James, who is very popular. I support our police, our firefighters, I oppose Sanctuary City, and I will not raise your taxes. The truth is, instead of a lot of talking, I prefer doing. When there's a problem, I don't sit behind my desk, I get out on the streets, any time of the day or night. And as mayor, I'll bring the same energy and commitment to the job. But when I talk to folks throughout the city, what I'm hearing is people are sick of partisan politics. They know we're at a crossroads. Troy has so much promise and opportunity ahead, but they're sick of incompetence. They want people to work together and focus on solving problems and getting things done and improving our quality of life. That's what I have done as your council president. That's what I did at the New York State Canal Corporation and the Greenway for 4 different governors on both sides of the aisle. And if given the honor by the people of Troy, that's what I'll do as your mayor. I will fight for all the people of Troy every day, every night. Thank you.
As we begin with the questions, just want to remind both candidates went slightly over in the opening statements. Just remember to keep an eye out for Mr. Mueller back there with the cards that are time-coded. So Carmella will be getting the first question, and then Nina will be getting a chance to answer it as well. No more than 2 minutes each for this question. First one is, the removal of privately owned lead pipes that connect to city water mains is a critical public health issue. If elected, what would be your strategy to address the lead pipe issue?
Thank you, Lydia. This is a super important issue for the people of Troy. This past year, about 7 months ago, the City Council actually found out that $500,000 was being sat on and not implemented to address the lead pipe issue here in the city of Troy. Our water is great. These are lead pipes in folks' homes. No parent should turn that tap water on and be afraid of lead coming out of that tap. So the council, when we did find out that these monies were being sat on and not implemented, we immediately, with the mayor, implemented a lead pipe replacement program. The council appropriated $3 million. To date, we're 5 months into the program. About 80 homes have been rectified where we are replacing lead pipes. I am committed to a $25 to $30 million program. The mayor stated it'll take 7 to 10 years. I am pledging tonight in my first term of office, if I win, we will have all lead pipes replaced throughout the city of Troy. It's ambitious, but it can be done. And what we will do is aggressively seek federal and state dollars to implement that program. This is a critical program. It does not just affect public safety, public health. It affects so many other domino impacts, whether it be economic development, environmental protection. So I pledge to have that program implemented, all lead pipes replaced within my first term.
Candidate Nichols?
So I also pledge to have the lead service lines replaced during my first term. Want to say that that money came to the city of Troy, not only during the Madden administration, but also during my opponent's tenure on the council. That was a significant amount of money and obviously should have been utilized as quickly as possible for the very reason that it is such a public health issue, and particularly for our youngest and most vulnerable Trojans. We could have looked to any number of other models, considering every other municipality who received these funds managed to expend them quickly. And it's not an excuse that the actual cost for the program far exceeds the grant that we've got. That was the same issue that all of the other municipalities faced. And of course, the strategy now is to go for every available dollar there is to help us do that as fast as possible. So the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act has a significant amount, $55 billion of money that we should be going for, as well as state investments to do that. I do agree with the plan to move forward with bonding for that money so that we have a pot and can immediately move forward with this project and do it as quickly as possible, even while we're seeking out these funds to try and reduce the amount that we actually have to use. Albany's plan, when they got this money, attempted to go ahead and move forward quickly with the program. They made two things available to people. One was for people who were waiting, which is a critical issue in Troy, even if it's going to take 4 years as an aggressive strategy, to provide water filters for families who were waiting. They also provided an opportunity for private citizens who wanted to go ahead and move forward with replacing their lines quickly to have a match from the city in order to do that. So there's some equity issues there, which is true, hence the water filters, but it also would reduce the overall tax burden on the citizens to go ahead and take care of that program.
Thank you, and we will stay with you for the second question, which comes from the senior class at Troy High School. What can you do to make downtown Troy more appealing to people outside of Troy?
Well, I think one of the things that make Troy most appealing to just about everybody inside Troy and outside Troy are historic buildings that make the character of our city what it is. So we need to do much more to preserve and protect that historic architecture. We have some tools on the books that we are not fully utilizing. One of the things that I probably will talk a lot about tonight is investment in our code enforcement department. We need to take care of these buildings before they can start to deteriorate. So we call that demolition by neglect, and far too many of our buildings are experiencing it. So we need to utilize the tools we have to get in there and to save those buildings and the character of our city. We also know from a recent report that in addition to our historic buildings driving our economy, so is the creative economy. That's what's bringing people here. That's some of our growth. So we need to create the infrastructure that supports our creative economy as well. We do need to do more also to make it an increasingly walkable, rideable city for people who come here and want to enjoy all modes of transportation and walk and enjoy the pleasures that our city has to offer. Talking to some recent RPI graduates at an event this summer, I asked them, what would it take for you to stay? And they love the restaurants and they love the bars, but they also want to see more amenities that are beyond that. So Bard & Baker was one of our local businesses that they highlighted. I would go out and actively recruit entrepreneurs and small businesses to bring a breadth of opportunities for enjoyment in our downtown and throughout our business districts of Troy.
Thank you, and candidate Mantello, what can you do to make downtown Troy more appealing to people outside of Troy?
Well, when I talk about downtown, you can't leave out all the other neighborhoods throughout the city. So one of the things I've heard while I go door to door is a lot of folks downtown, they actually feel like they're not in a neighborhood. Most recently, for instance, a club actually opened over on 4th Street. I received a number of calls from the residents in that area, basically saying, you know, Carmella, this is great. It's great that a business came into Troy, just like Slide and Dirty. I've received a number of phone calls about Slide and Dirty concerts. But saying that, we could talk about investment in all of our neighborhoods, including downtown, making them walkable, et cetera. If we are not cleaner, if we are not safer, we are not going to attract businesses and people into our downtown and into our neighborhoods. So saying that, a huge priority of mine is a quality of life task force. The council actually passed it bipartisan. The mayor refused to implement it. block by block. We will take back our streets. We will make our city safer. We will make our city cleaner. And you will see more investment, not just in downtown, but all throughout the city of Troy and all of our neighborhoods. Stating that our waterfront is a jewel. It's a gem. I did it for 12 years. I traveled the state. I was able to see firsthand municipalities using our waterfront as the front door to economic development, environmental protection, trails, walkability. We need to tap into our waterfront. We need to use our waterfront as our main street, not just in downtown, but all throughout the city of Troy. We have a close to 8-mile waterfront stretch. We are not tapping into it. Albany has 77, deterring them from developing their waterfront, and they're going to put billions of dollars into making their waterfront the front door. We don't have 77, so utilizing our waterfront, safer and cleaner.
Thank you, Carmella, and we will stay on your side for the next question. As mayor, what kind of city investment would you support for Freer Park, including improvements to the hockey rink and the golf course?
Absolutely. We have a true gem right in my backyard. I actually live right up by Freer Park. Freer Park right now, if a lot of folks don't know, we have incredible trails, a partnership with Freer Park Conservancy, RPI, a number of folks who are redeveloping Freer Park, not only in terms of golf, but also in terms of trails. We have birdhouses, you name it. In the off years of the golf course, you can see people cross-country skiing, sledding, you name it. So Freer Park is truly a jewel. And that, along with Prospect Park, both need a master plan. You should know $3 million was invested into the golf course at Freer Park. It was phased in over a period of time. We have a true gem where now folks can be proud of this golf course. However, we have so much more around Freer Park. As I mentioned, we have trails, we have ponds that so many folks frequent, they fish, etc. Our restaurant, the ice rink, needs a partnership. I've been contacted by the Youth Hockey Organization. To date, unfortunately, this administration has not formed a true partnership with the Youth Hockey Association. I plan to enhance that partnership. We need to invest not just in the golf course, but also the restaurant. If anyone's been there, it's a shame. $3 million into the golf course and you can't get a wheelchair into the restaurant. My son has special needs. I know firsthand what needs to happen at Freer Park. Yes, the golf course is great. Our trails are great. Let's make it more accessible, more inclusive. The park on North Lake Avenue is atrocious. You can't get a wheelchair into the park. The park in the lower half, where a lot of folks hold birthday parties, etc., it needs enhancement. The council appropriated $3 million into our pocket parks. A shovel just went into the ground this year. We appropriated the money 3 years ago. I will implement these dollars immediately, shovels in the ground, and you will see enhancements, not just in Freer and Prospect, all of our pocket parks.
And candidate Nichols, we will continue with the questions on this side. Just a reminder to both candidates, though, to keep to the time. We're going just a little bit over on them. So I know. And so is everybody here who's listening. This is great. So as we continue,
Parks.
yes. As mayor, what kind of city investment would you support for Freer Park, including improvements to the hockey rink and golf course?
Yes, so I have said throughout my campaign that investment equitably in every neighborhood across the city of Troy is a key priority of mine. Certainly Prospect Park serves many neighborhoods surrounding it and deserves robust investment in it. The city has appropriated significant amounts of money coming out of ARPA, and improvements are being made, and the golf course has been improved. There's more that we can do. We should take more advantage of what can happen at the ice rink rink because it provides a recreational opportunity, and particularly an additional opportunity for our youth who are longing for more options for what they can do in their free time, more ability to have mentoring conversations with trusted adults. So we definitely need to continue that investment in Freer Park. We do need a master plan for that, as well for the 73 acres that are in Prospect Park. What I've become aware of as I've gone through neighborhood meetings over the past several months, and as some of these improvements from the parks have started to happen, is the key thing that needed to begin each project was often drainage, which unfortunately is not a particularly sexy kind of thing, but important for any of the other things that are gonna happen. We're gonna go into a phase 2 with our parks. One of the things that's gonna have to happen for that is we're gonna have to raise the money. So another thing that I've talked about a lot is hiring a grant writer and possibly a team of really savvy grant writers to make sure we don't leave any money on the table that could help us to make these kinds of improvements to our city. I'm also aware that when we've had conversations in neighborhood groups, someone from the city staff will come in and say, well, as you told us during the community input period, this is what you would like to see. And the community in the room would respond with some shock and dismay because they didn't feel like they had adequate opportunity to give suggestions about their park at all. And so as we move into this next phase, it would be important to go and be part of neighborhood groups, encouraging the conversation and ensuring that each park and playground is what the neighbors say they need most. And I see a red card, so I'm gonna stop.
Thank you. I don't want to say 30 seconds because I don't want to interrupt your train of thoughts, but I may have to start doing that from now on. We'll see how it goes. We will stay on your side, Candidate Nichols, for the next question, the fourth question. City of Troy is home to 3 outstanding institutions of higher education: RPI, Russell Sage, and Hudson Valley Community College. A strong town-gown relationship is crucial for both partners. How will you help to build a long-term, mutually beneficial partnership between the city and the colleges?
Absolutely. I've often said in our 7-mile-long little city, what an amazing thing to have 3 institutions of higher learning as a part of our community. And I've been thrilled with the past several years, actually, of RPI's engagement in terms of bringing students from the Hill down into our downtown to enjoy all that our city has to offer. And when students are living in the apartments that are available throughout our city, they add so much to the conversation. So one thing that I would do to increase that kind of opportunity would be to tend to our negligent landlords throughout the city. We have lost so many staff members over the last several years, and that's an issue really across the board in all of our departments. But the absence of staff in our code enforcement department is particularly concerning. Additionally, Troy has 60% renters. 60% of the people in Troy are renters, and yet we have no program that involves proactive code enforcement that inspects the rental units that are in our city and ensures that students have a safe place to live. And I will move forward immediately with getting the appropriate staff in our code department, dealing with a culture that is about service, safety, and health, and then implementing an ROP program that will make all of our people safer, and particularly our students. I do think that there are so many opportunities to partner with each of our different institutions. I am particularly interested in the opportunity for RPI's intellectual capital to benefit Troy. I just spoke of grant writing. We would benefit from RPI, the classes or interns taking on particular projects. How can you help map the issues that we are needing to address? How can you help us inventory things? How can you help us design with your engineering programs? When I was on the city council, we did a project with Evan Douglas in the architecture school, and his class designed urban furniture as models for Riverfront Park. Sorry.
That's okay. Would you like to extend your time? Because we are 4 questions in almost, and no one's used their red cards yet. Okay, we'll keep going. So Carmella, how will you help to build a long-term, mutually beneficial partnership between the city and the colleges?
Sure. One difference, I don't have to point to 12 years ago on the council. I can point to very recently. I met with the new president of RPI, and I must say, a true, fresh breath of air. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Unfortunately, the prior president, there was no town gown, and as opposed to, you know, my opponent's statement, there really was no communiversity, which was talked about so much. We have the approach right here in our backyard, and the president has already begun events downtown. I hope that we can get him to other parts of the city of Troy. RPI is a huge asset, but so is SAGE and the other institutions. About 30 years ago, the city manager formed what's called the Troy Redevelopment Foundation. It basically is a partnership of the universities and St. Peter's where they appropriate close to $400,000 to the city of Troy. That has not increased in 30 years. I'd like to get that increase, but I already told the president I won't be knocking on his door January 1st, maybe the 2nd. But stating that, this redevelopment foundation provides grants, provides various projects to the city of Troy. However, as far as I know, as council president, we've had absolutely no input on where those monies go. We'd like to see them get more into the neighborhoods. I plan to talk to the president about that. Also, the mayor is an ex officio on the board of RPI. I'm not sure if the present mayor attends the meetings or not, but certainly we can have a better partnership. Think about this also, folks. 48% of the people of Troy are paying 100% because we have 52% tax-exempt properties. We need to flip that. We need to change that, and that's something I'm very passionate about. But thank you, President, for bringing some new blood into the relationship. Thank you.
So I've taken classes at SAGE, I've taken classes at a HVCC, and maybe by the end of tonight I can have a conversation with President Schmidt and start taking classes at RPI. I'll have the Troy trifecta going there. Candidate Mantello will stay on your side with question number 5. It is something you had already started speaking about. What is your specific strategy, though, for Troy's waterfront development?
Oh boy, do you have 2 hours?
No, 2 minutes. And it starts now.
Okay. Oh boy. As mentioned, this is near and dear to my heart. I was afforded an incredible opportunity to travel the state working with hundreds of communities, nonprofits, residents, all throughout the state, from the Hudson Valley, Albany, to New York City, and then the governor at the time booted me up the river. In this case, it was a good thing. And I oversaw the New York State Canal Corporation, 524 miles of waterway. What I saw firsthand, folks, was incredible. And we can have it all here in Troy. We're beginning to see pieces, whether you see the seawall, whether you see Lansingburg, the boat launch. But look at the South Troy boat launch. It's covered with weeds. It's inaccessible. That's unacceptable. Look at the Nichols boat launch, recently built, I want to say 3-4 years ago. The lighting isn't working. There's weeds all over the place. That's unacceptable. So we are going to use our waterfront as the front door to economic development, to trails, to more water trails, whether it be canoeing, kayaking, biking, you name it. And like I said, you're seeing it a little bit in downtown. My goal will be to have a trail from South Troy to Lansingburg with the downtown as the middle, but our neighborhoods are going to be connectors. And you're already seeing little bits and pieces, some voluntary organizations. The Rensselaer Plateau is working with various organizations to connect our trails, the Freer Park trails, the trails over on Verdon Pond. They can all be connected to our waterfront. However, Once again, it goes back to safer to cleaner. If we are not cleaning up our boat launches, cleaning up our alleyways, cleaning up the streets, our waterfront is not. We need to combine it all together. It dominoes into each other, and I will, as your mayor, truly make this one of my huge priorities.
Candidate Nichols, what is your specific strategy for Troy's waterfront development?
So I would put in place plans to protect and preserve access to the waterfront. And so as we're looking at different development opportunities that will come our way to ensure that our community always has availability to enjoy our treasure that is the Hudson River. I would extend the walkway that exists near our river so that people can enjoy it from all the way in Lansingburg through South Troy. I would look at what we can do to develop the waterfront along South Troy, again, with access for the community in mind. There's so much opportunity to use that land to provide additional opportunities for recreation, the potential for developing additional housing, which we know we need. I've talked to so many seniors in our community who talk about wanting to downsize from their homes and move into condos. And so looking at the opportunity from what that would look like in South Troy along the waterfront after we move the salt pile, which shouldn't be the thing that people see when they're coming into Troy from across the river. I would develop programs that work off of the water, including the canoeing and the kayaking, but I would do that particularly with an eye to encouraging our youth to engage in those programs and to making sure that our underserved communities within Troy also know that the waterfront is for them.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, as we get to the sixth question and the halfway point, you both have those two red cards that can extend for 1 minute and can only be used during the questions, not during the closing statements.
You're really pushing that, huh, Lydia?
Don't want you to leave your red cards on the table. Candidate Nichols, we will stay on your side for the sixth question. What priorities will be reflected and emphasized in your first budget?
So I've talked about wanting to invest in every neighborhood, protect our families, and encourage economic growth and pipelines to jobs. To make this be a safer, cleaner, greener Troy for everyone who lives, learns, works, and plays here. I think many people are aware that for a number of reasons, our city has had to do less and less with less. We've been in an austerity budget where we haven't been investing in ourselves. And during that time, our city workforce is worse for the wear because of it. And because of that, so are our services. So in order to get to safer or cleaner or greener, we're gonna have to staff up, and we're gonna have to look at the salary package that we offer our city workers. We're gonna have to do that at every level, because once you talk about raising the base pay, you have to talk about the compression on top of it. But if we're going to attract and retain staff, we have to be competitive with at least Albany, who just did that for their entire workforce. We have to be competitive with the private sector, and right now, you could get a job at McDonald's or Taco Bell and make more than what you could in some of the very hard jobs that we ask our staff to do. So addressing our staffing issue would be a key priority in the budget, because that costs money. A particular department that I have already talked about being concerned with is our code enforcement department. We haven't had a director of code for a very, very long time, and I would prioritize probably poaching that person from some other code department where they have proven their ability to successfully run that program with integrity and effectiveness. I would hire additional code inspectors that I would dedicate first to preserving our vacant buildings and attending to that, both in inventory and going after people who are letting their buildings become a demolition by neglect case study. I would dedicate the staff that it would take to run an effective residential occupancy program, recognizing that between our vacant buildings and our negligent landlords, that is a key way to invest in the public safety in our community, as so many of the involvement of crime comes out of what happens in those vacant buildings and is allowed to bloom in those unattended units.
Candidate Mantello, what priorities will be reflected and emphasized in your first budget?
First and foremost, Director of Code, super important, but I'm so much different. I'm all about boots on the ground. We have over 40 vacancies right now in the city of Troy. That is abysmal. DPU, I'll give you an example. I was on site for 2.5 days during the massive water main break, which lost 5 million gallons of water up in the Berg. And I saw firsthand our DPU staff. They literally lost their DPU commissioner superintendent that Friday. On Monday or Tuesday, we had the water main break. The administration actually had an outside contractor all ready to go. Our DPU staff said, no, we're gonna show that we can do this in-house. That's an example of the people that work day in and day out in City Hall. But guess what? Their morale right now is horrible. They have over 40 vacancies. They're getting no supervision. They're getting no management, no leadership. I see it firsthand. I've been there 8 years. We literally meet with each department during budget time. You know what they tell us? We want to boost our morale. We want to go out there. We want a quality of life task force, but the mayor doesn't want to implement it. I will bring that leadership. I will bring that management, just like I did at the New York State Canal Corp. I entered in 500 employees, $125 million budget. We had laborers, welders, electricians, all throughout the state. Everybody said, oh, Carmella, you work on trails. Don't worry about the operations and maintenance. My first week at the Canal Corporation, Lock 5 broke down. I saw firsthand how the operations and maintenance went hand in hand with tourism, with trails. We have 500 employees. By the time I left, those employees saw that they were part of a team. That's what I'm going to bring to the city of Troy, not just directors, boots on the ground, folks that want to be there and want to be part of a team and show the people of Troy what we are really made of.
And we have a 1-minute response. Your first red card, candidate Nichols.
Of course, I do think that it takes an effective team to be able to address the important issues that our city is facing. The mayor is not the head of DPU, nor should they try and be. The mayor is not the person who understands how to monitor our sewer lines or our water lines, nor should they pretend to be. My opponent talks about needing management and leadership, and yet at a recent meeting, it was tabled hiring 3 operations persons who would have helped to oversee our water and sewer lines that are critical to our city. That was part of what provoked our head of DPU to leave. So in fact, a lack of support for our city staff who so desperately needs it is what we need in a mayor, and that is what I would promise you.
Once again, just a reminder, and yes, candidate Mantello, I'll give you your minute. Just a reminder, asking everybody in the audience to hold your applause till the end. Thank you.
I won't have to read a script because I was there. Just so folks are aware, the reason the council, bipartisan, held off on 3 top dogs is because they have 6, 7 vacancies and 4 people on workers' comp in DPU. So my opponent, unfortunately, only gives you a third of the story. The superintendent had an offer to another municipality. He asked for a $30,000 raise, and he asked for 2 supervisors. At the same time, we had 6, 7 vacancies, 4 out on workers' comp. CSEA actually, after, stood up and told the superintendent that you were wrong, we need boots on the ground. So contrary to my opponent, you were only getting a third of the conversation here, a third of the proposal. They wanted top dogs, nobody on the ground. I'm all about the people on the ground, work your way up. And we saw that, guess what? A superintendent wasn't on site, and these guys worked day in and day out around the clock to fix that massive water main break.
Just going to preface our next question from Emma Willard School's Democracy Matters Club with a point. I was just recently at the Capital Roots fundraiser, and one of the items that we were trying to raise money for was a composting machine. It's a very expensive piece of equipment, tens of thousands of dollars, that would turn hundreds of pounds of waste, keep it out of the landfill, and turn it into just a very small amount, 20 or 25 pounds of composting. Why, you may ask, am I telling you that story? Because Emma Willard School's Democracy Matters Club is asking, how will you spread awareness about composting and opening more composting sites? And we will start with you, Carmella.
Thank you. You know, in our city right now, we have a fabulous group of folks. It's called Zero Waste. They're volunteers. They work day in and day out to promote education for recycling and for composting. Folks should know we are nowhere where we need to be when it comes to recycling. We're about 30% here in the city of Troy households. We need to obviously bump that. And we all know the benefits of recycling, composting. It's great for the environment, but it's also great financially because it reduces our tipping costs. Saying that, when it comes to composting, we have a couple folks in the city of Troy who are really trying to get aggressive. They came in for a neighborhood improvement program grant. It's a great grant program that the city council partners with various volunteers. And they had an idea to enhance the composting program here in the city of Troy, to actually have neighborhood stops where you could drop off your food waste, et cetera, at these drop-offs. Unfortunately, they weren't ready to expand it, and it would actually be located all throughout the city. It's something I plan to partner with Zero Waste on, something I plan to partner with our sustainability task force. And as we know, to control, obviously, the waste stream is extremely important. So I would work with Zero Waste. We would have more drop-off sites here in the city of Troy. And we need to obviously educate and promote our recycling program more. We have a great program, but we need to see more folks recycling, composting. But we need more drop-offs if we are going to get folks to compost more.
Same question for you, Nina. How will you spread awareness about composting and opening more composting sites?
Yes, so my wife and I got to participate in the pilot for the Troy composting program. We love our bucket and the bag that comes with it, and we were so deeply sad when we got our letter from Renee telling us that that grant had expired, and that while we were waiting for them to try and seek out more grant funds, which is exactly what we should be doing, that we would have these very, very limited opportunities for where to take our compost if we wanted to take it there. So I agree, and it would definitely be at the top of the priorities, in addition to seeking out the funds to restand up the program, as a temporary solution to find more neighborhood spots and expanded hours to be able to deliver that compost that diverts so much from our waste stream, allows us to reduce our tipping fees, but also allows us to do a better thing for our planet by reducing the methane that gets released into the environment. Again, I would note that Mayor Sheehan has made it a priority in her budget that she just revealed on Friday, and that we should take her lead on expanding that municipal composting program. I know one of the things that made it possible for us to participate in it, or I shouldn't even say possible, it's really hard to get people to change their ways. The bucket and the bag made all the difference. The city just invested in giving us all humongous trash cans. The city can also make the investment to equip everyone with a bucket so that you will have the opportunity to participate in this thing that is good for you, good for our planet, and a potential revenue source for us as that compost gets created.
Candidate Nichols, will stay on your side for the 8th question. What is a city infrastructure project completed during the last 4 years that you think took too long and cost too much? And what would you have done differently?
Well, I guess the infrastructure improvements in our parks could have been invested more quickly. And I do think that we should make it a goal as a city to have the best parks and playgrounds in the capital region. People should know that when they come here, their families will be served by the opportunities to enjoy those spaces. So I look at the Geneva Pompey Park that got a significant investment and major improvements, and how that community is able to enjoy what's there. Our other parks deserve that kind of time and attention and opportunity. I do also want to say, recognizing that the questions come from all over Troy, and people don't necessarily always have the information about what's going on in our city. Again, we just went through COVID. We had supply chain issues. We had workforce challenges, not just in the city of Troy, but by the people who were providing services. And so sometimes it's helpful to give context to our neighbors and our neighborhoods about why some projects are taking longer than we think they should. That's a service to our community, to our residents, and to us working together for a shared vision to what Troy can be.
Thank you. Candidate Mantello, what is a city infrastructure project completed during the last 4 years that you think took too long, cost too much? What would you have done differently?
Well, you know, I've mentioned it a few times. First and foremost, when it comes to infrastructure, there is no wasted dollars. Infrastructure is key to not just economic development, but public safety, public health, you name it. I was we worked with the mayor to invest $40 million into our water main. To date, that is under budget. Our water extends from Tom Hannock all the way down to Scatticoke. We've invested $40 million with that particular bonding, but stating that, I've said it many, many times, I'm very, very upset about our parks plan. The city council appropriated, we bonded 3.5 years ago, $2 million, another $2 million in ARPA. We are just seeing shovels in the ground. And contrary to what my opponent said, had nothing to do with COVID, et cetera. The designs were done 3 years ago, some with public input, some without. It was overseen by the deputy mayor. Those monies, while very, very important to our pocket parks, which I'm very, very passionate about, they did not get into the ground quick enough. So now we're seeing, years later, obviously, costs are escalated. We're seeing only a first phase over at Kinloch Park. We saw Geneva Pompey. Look at 10th Street Park. Poor Frank Maven is begging for electric, and he's using a mobile generator. That's unacceptable. Look at North Lake. I could literally talk about every pocket park in this city that needs attention. We have the money there. We need to invest more, but this mayor and administration sat on the monies until literally 6 months ago. It's unacceptable. The council implored, we begged. Unfortunately, it did not move forward. So stating that, I would say that's probably the most that I just am extremely, extremely upset about. We need more money for our pocket parks. We need to make them inclusive, handicap accessible. It did not happen, and unfortunately, it's beginning now, a little too late. But stating that if I am your mayor, you're going to see the pocket parks as a huge priority.
We will stay on your side for the question from Lansingburg High School students. They say students are concerned about their safety in our community. Fear of crime and violence limits young people's ability to enjoy the outdoors and to participate in community activities. What specific policies and programs would you implement to make young people feel safe and supported in our community?
Do you have 6-7 hours to talk about this? This is just a huge issue, not just in Lansingburg, but obviously so many other neighborhoods who are seeing crime hotspots. Stating that, a lot of folks probably are aware, just a week and a half ago, I was actually at the water main break, and there was a phone call that there was a shooting a block and a half from Lansingburg High. I ended up going down to it because school was getting out about the same time. And coincidentally, my very good friend lived about 4 houses from where that shooting occurred. I can promise you right now, it's a huge priority. We cannot look lightly upon public safety. Our children need to be safe when they go to school. My nephew, full disclosure, is on the force right now. He was an SRO, which is a school resource officer. Lansingburg has asked for additional school resource officers. Unfortunately, the mayor has refused to partner. I assure you, it's going to be a focus. Those school resource officers, we have 2 at Troy High, 1 in the Berg. It's not enough, but what they do, they work with the students hand in hand. They actually deter crimes. They become a mentor, and those students trust our police officers. So that's what it's all about, trust. Park Walk and Talk is huge. We hired 6 new officers for community policing. My opponent actually zoomed in and opposed the 6 new officers. I will do everything humanly possible to get our officers to Park Walk and Talk, but also to provide them the tools and the resources they need to ensure that our kids are attending school and that they are safe.
Candidate Nichols, the same question that at the end of the students was, what specific policies and programs would you implement to make young people feel safe and supported in our community?
So I would invest robustly in our police department so that they are fully staffed and trained and equipped to do their work. I would ensure also that they have adequate partners to support them in their efforts when the job more belongs to a domestic violence services provider or a mental health professional, either from one of our nonprofits or working more closely with Rensselaer County Mental Health. So many of our crime events are tied up in what's happening in our vacant buildings, and we know this. And so again, making sure that we've staffed, trained, and equipped our code enforcement department as well, so that they can tend to what's happening in these buildings, is going to be a key part in actually making us safer. Finally, so many of our youth are involved in some of these criminal activities as well. And that happens when youth don't have adequate opportunities for recreation, for artistic opportunities, for some of those quality mentoring times. We need to do more to help support our small, grassroots, community-based organizations that are already doing so much for our youth. We need to do more to expand what's happening in our parks and playgrounds over the summer. At one time, Troy had staff that would go from park to park and be available to do youth programming. We need to bring that back. Youth also need opportunities to have pathways to employment as they reach some of their older years. So in fact, to make us safer, it takes a robust and holistic plan for what public safety will look like.
We have 3 more questions, and our 2-minute closing statements puts us slightly over the 7:05 closing time, but you know what? We're gonna power through, and I have 3 extra questions I'm gonna give you as lightning rounds at the end, so.
I asked for lightning rounds, they said no. Okay.
Okay, then I will only do 1. We will then continue with our 10th question. Nina, we will stay on your side. What do you think is the most important infrastructure project needed in Troy right now?
Well, I mean, the water main break was a serious issue that cost people their property, flooded basements, and we must tend to our water service lines. And so that's, as everyone I'm sure is aware, a challenging task to undertake. And in order to do it, we would need to adequately staff our Department of Public Utilities department. That would be staff at every level. We need a leader, we need operations managers, and of course, we need boots on the ground. But that's a combination, that is a team team, and they'll be able to do that work. We also need to invest in the new technology that is really just now coming online to be able to monitor what's happening to these lines. For so long, our main opportunity was to realize we needed to replace a water service line when it was already too late. We can now begin to put in place a plan, again, that takes leadership, that could look over those water mains and begin to make a plan to address them before it causes that kind of damage.
Carmella, same question. What do you think is the most important infrastructure project needed right now in Troy?
Yeah, no doubt the lead pipe water replacement program. As I mentioned earlier, no parent, no adult should be afraid to turn their tap water on and, giving their children a bath, you name it, tap water. It needs to be addressed ASAP. But more importantly, when we talk about our water and sewer infrastructure, there is actually a great bipartisan state bill right now. And this week, I'm actually sponsoring a resolution whereby a lot of folks may know right now we get our paving money from state and federal dollars. It's called Marcus-Elli money, it's called CHIPS. There is actually a proposal right now, bipartisan in the state legislature for sewer and water, for annual appropriations to municipalities, where municipalities would actually receive an annual appropriation for our water and sewer infrastructure. That is huge, because if you saw what happened the other day, we have aging pipes all throughout the city of Troy. And we do have the technology to look underground and to see which pipes are maybe more aging than the others, but you never know when they're going to break. And we haven't even gotten to the winter, where we all know, if you're Trojans, that's when we're going to see the water main breaks. So saying that, I am sponsoring a resolution for annual sewer and water infrastructure. The lead pipe replacement program, we're going to aggressively seek federal and state dollars. We're about $700,000 right now through the $3 million that we appropriated for the lead pipe replacement program. We've done about 80 some odd households. That will be done in my first term.
Down to the final two questions, and you each still have one more red card. Candidate Mantello, staying on your side, what exactly is the mayor's role in economic development? Do you plan to be directly involved in recruiting new businesses and creating new jobs?
A couple fronts. I've talked about a lot tonight, whether it be code, whether it be our quality of life task force. Economic development goes hand in hand with quality of life. When families and people are moving into a municipality, they look at three major indicators: education, taxes, quality of life. Quality of life is huge. And I do plan to implement that in my first 100 days. And what it's all about, it's not additional people, it's getting our departments in City Hall to cross those barriers, not work in a silo. Right now, they're very, very reactive. They're not proactive. We will take back our city block by block doing sweeps. We've done it in North Central. Kevin Pryor's right here. He's seen it firsthand. We've done it in North Central and in Lansingburg, but it's not happening consistently. Where code, community police, DPW, litter patrol all work together to address blighted buildings, to address code and other issues. So we must make our city safer and cleaner if we want to attract new investment, new families. And then secondly, I did have another, I'm on a roll, but economic development, as I mentioned, does go hand in hand with quality of life. But also, one of the things, here it is, I knew it'd come to me. Just so a lot of folks know, the mayor is not intricately right now involved in planning projects. I'll give you the red cards up, but real quick, I do plan when economic—
That was just 30 seconds.
Yep, economic development projects are proposed here in the city. The mayor basically lets the planning commissioner take care of it, and neighbors like Nora Dwyer found out that they're turning a building into 18 studios that used to just be a building for seniors. So saying that I plan to sit down with developers and involve the community before it gets to the planning meeting so we can ensure that the community understands what that project is, whether it be Dunleer, whether it be over on King Street. The community needs to be more involved and the mayor needs to be a part of that. We did it in the Hudson Valley, we did it along the canal, we can do it here in Troy.
And the same question for you. What exactly is the mayor's role in economic development? Do you plan to be directly involved in recruiting new businesses and creating new jobs?
So I think the mayor's key role is to set the vision for our city and then implement the plans and the policies and the practices that are encouraging that vision to flourish. So on the broad strokes, we talk about a safer, cleaner, greener city, and absolutely in order to get there, the involvement would be to make sure that we're fully staffed so that those services are provided, so that we are offering the kind of quality of life that people are seeking out. But yes, there's actually a lot more than that the mayor can and should do to support that vision. Oh, and also, I've talked a lot about encouraging our growth while preserving our character. And so that as businesses are seeking to come here, as we're talking to developers about their opportunities, making sure that that's going to be done in compliance with all of the rules around our historic district, and working with developers to ensure that when they are coming here, particularly if they're seeking out any kind of incentives to help them with what they're doing, that benefits the community that surrounds them. Additionally, in order to encourage economic growth and development, we need to tend to our biggest employers and make sure that they are able to continue to employ the people they do. I'm thinking about higher education as one of our major employers, healthcare, human services, and then key, I think, in Troy, our tech industry, and particularly our gaming industry, and our creative economy that is flourishing, and that we know from the recent Creative Spark report is both the fastest growing number of jobs and is what's actually bringing people to come and live in our cities, and that is particularly true in Troy. I also think we have to develop the infrastructure that helps support businesses coming to Troy, that actually will attract folks. When I had my first meet and greet with President Schmidt, with Marty, one of the things that he noted in our conversation was the lack of childcare for people. So here you have an employer at RPI, but if your family was coming here, there are very few opportunities for where you could put your child in a safe, quality placement. And finally, and really quickly, we need to do more to support our small business entrepreneurs. We need to work more with our bid. We need to explore additional bid opportunities. We need to streamline our process. We need to communicate that more effectively to business owners and entrepreneurs. And we need to digitize most of our forms so that it's an easier experience for them to work here.
You have our final 2-minute question, starting on this side. If you could change one thing in Troy's zoning code, what would it be and why?
Well, I actually not sure that I would change anything. And part of the reason I say that is our city just went through a massive rezone process. And our zoning codes have been created with much community input so that we preserve the characters of the neighborhoods where people are living and our historic district and our business district. And so there was robust conversation about that. If anything, what we should be doing is more faithfully utilizing our code, our zoning code, and then in our planning process. We also could utilize more input from some of the professional expertise that we have, both in terms of walkable initiatives from Capitol Streets, from our historic preservation groups, earlier in the zoning and planning process, again, to attend to our development opportunities happening in accordance with the very conversations that collectively we just determined we should operate under.
And the same question for you. If you could change one thing in Troy's zoning code, what would it be and why?
Well, you know, as my opponent mentioned, the ink is not dry on our zoning code, but one of the things I have seen firsthand with a few proposals that have come before planning and zoning, and that's parking. This new zoning code actually helps the developer because they're trying to create more mass transit, electric cars, et cetera. And so that's great, but at the same time, they actually limited the amount of parking places for a particular development. And we're seeing in residential neighborhoods already, it's become very contentious. And I see a couple of people shaking their head because I've been a part of neighborhood meetings. However, I do not plan to change that. We need to at least give it a try. But more importantly, to take a step back, my opponent probably isn't aware, but I've been there every day. Education. Our code enforcement officers, they didn't even know the new code. So the communication right now to take a step back in City Hall, it's lacking. The leadership is lacking. Our code enforcement officers, which honestly code needs an overhaul right now. The director, that's secondary. Let's first get the boots on the ground. We have a number of vacancies, but more importantly, they didn't even know the new code. So one of my priorities is to provide that education and training to our employees. They don't have it right now, and the communication is not there. That supervision, that leadership will happen under my tenure. And then just lastly, public input on major economic development projects needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Those are the 12 questions that we had for both candidates. I'm just throwing in one extra one, and I'm going to set my clock for 30 seconds.
Whoa.
Because there's been a lot of policy, a lot of numbers, but this one might get to who you are as people. What is your favorite place to spend time in Troy and why? We'll have 30 seconds, and candidate Mantello, we will start with you.
Oh, geez, I have so many special places in Troy. The parks, I absolutely love. The waterfront, I'm very passionate about, as you heard earlier. I have kayaked from Albany to New York City. I've kayaked here in Troy. I've kayaked over on People's Island to Troy, stating that our waterfront, our pocket parks, but honestly, the best place to be in Troy is anywhere because the people in Troy are the greatest asset that we have.
Time, and thank you. And the same with candidate Nichols. What is your favorite place to spend time in Troy and why?
So I actually agree with my opponent that the Troy residents are the Troy treasures. And so any place where you can really be interacting with our neighbors and our community, that's the place to be in Troy. But if I had to pick one, because it offers so much opportunity for doing that, it would be the Troy Waterfront Farmers Market, which is the best in at least the state, but I think probably the nation. And it's like having a festival in your downtown every single weekend. It's an opportunity to get fresh, wonderful food, to interact with the vendors, but you also can't walk through there without running into a dozen or more people that you know. It builds community, and I'm done.
Thank you. I love that we came to agreement at the end. Now the forum is concluding with closing statements, beginning with candidate Nina Nichols.
Thank you again to RPI, to the League of Women Voters, and to Lydia Colbita for providing this opportunity for us to share our responses to tonight's questions. Thank you all again for choosing to be here and for your willingness to engage in local elections, which are so very important. I believe that my track record as a council member and a county legislator, my years as a nonprofit and community leader, and my willingness to work across the aisle with partners at all levels of leadership to solve problems, not pointing fingers, not looking at someone else to blame, is exactly the kind of leadership that Troy is in desperate need of today. I love this city, and I think it can be better. The beauty of a place like Troy is that individual peoples like you can make a difference through your vote, and through conversations with fellow community members and elected leaders. If you have any follow-up questions, I would love to speak to you at the reception following this event, and you can reach out through our campaign social media accounts, which are linked through my website, ninanichols.net.
Thank you. And closing statements now from candidate Carmella Mantello.
I want to thank the host. I'd like to thank RPI, the League of Women Voters, Lydia, my opponent, and most of all, I want to thank you, the audience, for taking the time to be with us tonight. If it hasn't come through to you tonight, I love this city. I know the promise of our city. I know the promise of its people. I know it because Troy is part of my DNA. This is the city I drew my first breath in, and God willing, many years from now, I will draw my last breath, many years. And while we have made some progress over the past few years, we have so much more to do, much, much more. For too long, the people of Troy have been shortchanged by an administration that, while well-intentioned, is too often aloof from the day-to-day management, day-to-day operations, too often out of touch with the people. It manifests itself in too many dirty streets and alleyways. It manifests itself into too much crime. And it manifests in too many infrastructure projects, from cleaner, safer water to better parks, that have been delayed. As mayor, the buck will stop with me. And I promise, if elected, we'll get shovels in the ground, we'll have cleaner streets, we will enforce our building code, and as mayor, we will have safer streets. And I can promise you, I will not support a tax hike to make Troy less affordable. Tonight, you have heard the real differences between my opponent and I. Differences in our visions for the city, but more importantly, our approach to governing. And real big differences on the issues of safety, sanctuary, and surcharges. The choice on Election Day could not be clearer. I'm Carmella Mantello, Carmella from the Burgh, a Trojan, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
I'll now ask everyone in the audience, as I thank our candidates, Carmella Mantello and Nina Nichols, you can all give your heartiest applause simultaneously. Thank you to our candidates for sharing their time, sharing their views. Thank you to RPI and the League of Women Voters of Rensselaer County for hosting this forum. And also thank you to all in the audience for attending. It has been said that an informed people is one of the best guarantees of a continuing democracy. And tonight, it is an important step to inform your vote next month. And now we invite you all to enjoy the reception, starting immediately in Evelyn's Cafe. Thank you.